so the perseverance comes into place, knowing that if we can get to the end, get through the tunnel and get to the vision, what we're creating within the workplace is a much better place to work.
Hi, I'm Shannon Lucas. I'm one of the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to catalyzing innate change makers to accelerate positive change.
And I'm Justin Scott Campbell. I'm a DEI consultant and leadership executive coach.
This is our podcast, Catalyzing a Culture of Inclusion, where we highlight catalysts who have taken the brave step of moving into DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion work, leadership in large organizations.
We hope this mini-series is a space of learning, encouragement, and ultimately community and connection. If you're new to DEI and or the world of Catalyst, we hope you'll enjoy.
We're thrilled today to have Taisha Nurse with us. She's the Global Senior Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for McDermott. Taisha has over 20 years of experience in several industries and geographies. She's sort of a professional expat, she says, and she enjoys developing DE&I strategies that cultivate diverse and inclusive teams to better equip our employees to lead, embrace change, and support the overall business cross-culturally. She's eager to develop the first-in-class HR strategies that flex and support the ever-changing work environment for multiple geography markets, including the US, Europe, the Caribbean, Middle East, with experience that she has across multiple HR disciplines. In addition, Taisha is also a solutions-focused, results-oriented certified coach with the International Coach Federation, as well as a highly perceptive and intuitive certified Theta healer. Welcome. So lovely to have you, Taisha.
Thank you so much, both Shannon and Justin. It's an opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So we'd like to start off by asking and hearing how you as a DE&I practitioner relate to the concept of being a catalyst.
So I can definitely say I'm a catalyst, and I really found my soul home when I read the book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out. I really find that my intuitive skills, abilities, and preferences for change, as well as my frustrations and impatience with myself and others, were captured to a T in the book. And it was an opportunity to really connect and relate for the first time. It was as if you had laid out my personality and I was reading and, felt really understood for the first time. If I describe myself, I would say that I am truly driven by purpose. And I have a habit of really forging forward with a great deal of speed and efficiency. And that's not to just toot my own horn. It's just, I've noticed it, that I'll pick up something quicker than others. And I actually think to myself, is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why aren't people getting this as quickly? And so to read about it was so refreshing. I think I'm also very organized, very disciplined and focused. And when I am organized, disciplined and focused, that's where I'm really operating at my peak. I'm not at my peak 100%, but definitely realize, what my routines have to be for me to be at my peak. And so just, again, reading through the book and understanding fully the concept of catalyst, I could say that was me.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the comment about the book. And also, just shouting out for our listeners that superpower that we can develop about being focused and disciplined to support all of the dot connecting and how that's a really superpower in terms of creating change. So I'd love to understand, and maybe connected to that, what are a couple of skills that have made you successful as a catalyst, particularly leading DEIs, and maybe some stories of how they've helped you. Maybe there were times where you actually failed because you didn't have them. We'd love to unpack, your top two skills.
First one I would say is perseverance. And just to give a definition around what it is, it's truly the persistence in doing something despite any difficulty or delay in achieving success. So in that context, working in diversity, it calls for changing behaviors, mindsets, actions. And so that really takes time. And you will actually get resistance because you are trying to change something that's not tangible. It's not a process. It's sometimes inherent to the individual. So I spend a lot of time in my role highlighting and raising awareness around people's biases, whether it's conscious or unconscious, trying to demonstrate how they can positively and often negatively impact the DE&I vision to create a diverse and inclusive culture. And so I'm pushing and questioning in ways that people may not particularly like. And what I find often is a lot of silent resistance. So no one's going to say DE&I is a bad thing, but ultimately they don't want to change their behaviors. And so it has to be that constant perseverance, because the change takes a lot more time than I am sometimes willing to accept. But, I have to put it in context that you're introducing new skills, raising awareness, and you're touching people's thoughts and opinions, and often how they were raised, their cultural experiences, how they were brought up. And so the perseverance comes into place, knowing that if we can get to the end, get through the tunnel and get to the vision, what we're creating within the workplace is a much better place to work. We can attract and retain the best. We can be an employer of choice. It's just that as we're going through that journey, it's not obvious to each individual employee. And so it's just continuing to push on. Where have I failed? The failure comes with me being a catalyst and wanting things to be changed at my pace. And so there's a lot of patience that I need to exercise. And in my role, we cover over 23 different countries. And so you can't underestimate the power of culture. And so in the West, I can have different levels of conversations because the maturity is different versus where I am in the Middle East and perhaps Asia. And so, yes, I'm impatient, et cetera, and I can see the benefits, but it's failed where I've wanted it to kind of proceed at my own pace, but I still have that energy to keep pushing. Like I said, I'm driven, I'm quite passionate about it, and I know it's the right thing to do. So I think that's a big one, perseverance, especially in the DE&I role, because it's not always rewarding. And sometimes you get a lot of resistance sometimes from individuals.
That is really the crux of why we wanted to have this conversation, right? It's because the energy required to, especially as a catalyst leader, because as a catalyst leader, we're even more wanting to move faster. Our level of patience is often really, really challenging. How do you manage your energy through that? And especially with, like you said, the culture, the self-management, the self-reflection that it takes to show up differently in all of those different cultures and the feedback that you're getting.
What I've done is strategically found individuals that are actually passionate about DE&I. And so those are my go-tos when I'm having a bad day, when I think, what, this just isn't working. So that's in the organization, and that's actually external to the organization. So when I've had perhaps a very hard week, I'm very cognizant to schedule an hour call with an internal colleague or have a coffee with, some of the DE&I consultants that I know. And just give it the truth that I'm frustrated and I don't know why it's not working and I don't know how to change, et cetera. And usually it's about just, okay, calm down. Remember that what you're doing is usually more than enough, but it takes time. So I do have a circle of friends and colleagues and a really good network that helps me to rejuvenate, I should say, my energy.
Yeah, nice. And that's what we talk about in the book, right? The power of community. Yeah, Justin, jump in.
Yeah, so I'm curious too, as you talked about managing across different geographies, like from a DE&I perspective, I think some practitioners are working specifically in the US context or specifically in the UK context, or, and each of those has very specific, unique histories that inform the challenges that show up. And so as you're looking at multiple geographies, multiple historical contexts, like you said, multiple kind of open kinds of openness to this work, how do you craft a kind of, I don't know if you could say, universal DE&I policy that, kind of reaches across those different types of situations and contexts? And how do you kind of manage and think about that?
Yeah, it's definitely not a one size fits all. So our vision is to create a diverse and consciously inclusive culture within the workforce. But then we break it down to understand, well, what does that mean for different parts of the world? So if I speak about a few different areas that I've recently visited, for India, it was really looking at the culture, because a lot of people will say, well, India is not diverse. 99% of our population are Indians, where the reality is it's hugely diverse. And so trying to then, as we speak to the individuals in the office, making sure that they understand, I understand. So going into the room and, having done the research, reaching out to external providers to get some context of what's hot, what's the conversation and the dialogue in India. We're also driving high psychological safety. So as we know, in inclusive culture, you would expect to see high psychological safety, but by virtue of the culture being so strongly hierarchical, we don't have the traditional measures of high psychological safety. So there's a focus on psychological safety. If I go to the US, where I was just a month ago, the maturity of DE&I is much further. So it's now looking at really the political influence on diversity, and not wanting to get too political in the discussion, but wanting to see how does it impact what's happening in the organization. And that's more of not training, but dialogues. So creating spaces where individuals can come and have a dialogue. And I would say in the US, it's kind of this cancel culture where people have told me, I don't even want to ask any questions. Like I say nothing for the fear of saying the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And so it's saying, but wait, that's going to actually stunt the progression of diversity if that's where we're at. So it's very different. It's just having that overarching vision for McDermott, but actually tweaking it as we kind of move across the different countries.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Is there another skill, like perseverance, like definitely goes behind everything you just said?
Yes,
You wanted to share?
So the other one I would say, essential skill, I thrive in change. I like to drive change. It's easy. You did mention I'm a certified coach. And so as I said, as I claim myself to be solutions focused and action oriented, beyond thinking about the vision and talking through the next steps, I like to see execution. So I'm very much action oriented. How do we make it better? I think I am probably a little addicted to change and driving change, because I can always find the next thing that we should be doing. And it's beyond just thinking about it. It's like, well, I just want to do it. And so I have to slow down a little bit, but it's just that desire to as people are speaking or watching something, etc., reading something, it will be a light bulb in my head of, yeah, that's the next thing that should be done. And so I'm fueled by it. I enjoy it. So I think that helps when you're in the DE&I role, because when it feels like it's getting a little stagnant, it's demotivating, where I think, okay, well, what else do we need to do to move the dial forward? And, looking for those kind of nuggets that will take it to the next step.
And how do you're a total catalyst. We know that. How do you bring people along? Like that dot connecting is so powerful, but sometimes we don't even have the language to explain that thing that we're seeing right now. Or, I think of like the Matrix, they can't even see it even if you said it, right? How do you bring people along on that?
So I'm working on that, Shannon. I'm working on that. That's what I learned taking the course, Catalyst Constellations, is being able to slow down to articulate the steps that, I'm taking, even within my team. They're very honest with me because we have that, connection. but they'll say like, Taisha, you're moving so fast. Can we finish one thing before we get to the next thing? And I'm like, yeah, it's not that we're not going to finish that, but if they're on plan A, I'm on plan D, already kind of mapping it out. So I've taken the learnings and over communicating and being very repetitive. That felt like such a waste of time to have to repeat and repeat and repeat. So I'm learning the skills needed to try to move people along. But I am quick that if you are a resistor or, you don't believe, I will happily continue on and know that in time, when you see the wave moving,
That's right.
you're either going to have to join it or you'll get knocked down.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And congratulations on creating the psychological safety where your team can be like, hey, too fast, Taisha, too fast. We need a breath. Thanks. I guess I asked this question a little bit, but I want to give you ask it in a slightly different way. Like, how do you get the support you need to drive this level of systems change? So the community is one. Is there another one? Because like we said, it's a heavy emotional lift.
It is, but I think, there's also strategy behind it. So we were operated top down. So the top making sure that they support it.
Nice.
Where I find the challenge is we call it the frozen middle. It's the middle managers. And so it's working through the levels within the organization. We also have our ERG, so that's almost like bottoms up. So again, just looking for individuals that have the interest. And then from a systems perspective and processes, slowly kind of being very repetitive and very intentional in terms of what we're doing. So definitely looking at policies, making sure that they're inclusive and the likes. But I think once people see someone that's quite passionate about what they're doing, and I will say I don't have a huge team, but we call it a DE&I tribe, which considers our DE&I council, our ERGs. I also have DE&I leads in each country. And so a lot of the people don't have a solid reporting line into the function, but they're passionate. And so, yeah, they are happy to be a part of it. And so I can see that network starting to gain its own momentum and its own reach.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you kind of shared about a lot of those different contexts and the challenges that are coming up, what are some of the biggest challenges or the biggest challenge that you're currently facing as a Catalyst leader?
The first one, which it feels very tactile, but it's one that I'm still trying to wrap my head around, is to be able to track the progress and the change. And to really be quite intentional about how do we measure it? What are the KPIs? What are the metrics? Using our data, McDermott data, to find how do we show not only employees, but managers where they are today and keep them accountable for those changes, where we're looking at unconscious bias, inclusive leadership, psychological safety. Those are all soft skills. And I'm trying to figure out, well, how do you measure that and the impact to the business? And McDermott is mostly engineers. So they also want to see hard-coded numbers and how does it relate to the bottom line? How does it make us profitable? How does it make us an employer of choice? And so that's going to take time to just really figure out how to quantify it and then measure it over time. But I think that's one of my biggest challenges as a DE&I leader. And I speak to a lot of people and everyone is doing something, but for me, it's not getting to the crux of what I want to be able to demonstrate in metrics.
So as you kind of named those challenges, have you found anything that's working in the short term or that you have a lot of hope about in terms of those processes and systems that other folks may be able to implement even in their organizations?
So Justin, it's never enough for me.
Right,
So
right,
we
yes.
have, we have dashboards. You can, it's updated every month. We can break it in so many ways. We measure different components of diversity. We have recruitment targets that we look at on a quarterly basis that's, owned by the business line. So it's not a blank slate, but I'm still looking for more. And like I said, I really want to show that correlation to how does it support the business from a profitability perspective. And I haven't found that. But in terms of, what's our composition, et cetera, we have the dashboards and people are interested in seeing it, don't get me wrong. But it's kind of, I'm looking for my company's business case. The overall business cases out there, the McKinseys, and the likes have said, it definitely supports the business. However, I want to be able to prove it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, so many practitioners are in the same position of wanting to have that, because there is the kind of intuitive sense and also the kind of, like you said, the larger sense of that, but having the actual data to back up the claim for your organization, getting that data and getting that, I think is a bit of where we're emerging into. And so getting those systems and best practices is the future, I think. So you're living in the future a bit in that. So
So you mean
great.
tomorrow?
Yes, literally, time zone wise.
It's in the future
yes,
of tomorrow. Yes.
right.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
exactly. Reporting back from the future. But yeah, thank you.
Yes.
All right, so now we're going to get into a bit of the rapid fire. Are you ready for that?
Yes.
Okay, so our first question for rapid fire is, what do you like to do to prepare for a big meeting?
Yeah. So for the first one for me is to sleep well. So I enjoy my sleep, not because it's something that, I enjoy on a nightly basis. It's because it's important. And that's when I want to be at peak performance. I need sleep. Also, something that works for me, and I know I learned it when I was training as a coach, visualizing the presentation and the interaction and the response that I want to elicit from others in the room. And so it's not necessarily standing up in my house and going through what I'm going to say. It's actually sitting in a quiet space with my eyes closed and kind of going through the flow of how I want to see it happen. And how that supports me is because on the day, it doesn't feel like it's the first time. And it doesn't feel like I'm with strangers in the room. It's almost like, okay, I've been here. My body, every molecule in my body says, you've got this, because we already visualized it. We've had the experience. And so this is just secondary.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so what's your favorite way to spend a free day when you get one?
I get them. It depends on how I feel. So I am an introvert, and I take time out for myself to really refuel. So if I've been in a social setting for too long, I will just spend time by myself. That could be reading, going for a massage, having acupuncture. So I've mastered the self-care. I don't have a problem with that. And if I want to be around people, I may spend time with friends, family, take it easy, go for brunch, have a night out, that type of thing. So it just depends kind of where I am, but that's how I would spend a free day.
All right, thank you for sharing that as well. And so the last question is, who is your favorite catalyst, alive or dead?
Yeah, so I immediately came up with Mandela, and recognizing his willingness to stand up for change and his beliefs at the risk of his own freedom. And when I thought about it, I said, but I'm not there. I'm not there yet. I may have very strong beliefs, but would I sacrifice my freedom? No, not at this stage. And so I really admire anyone that could really have that commitment and take that stance based on values and principles. So yeah, I would say that's my favorite famous catalyst.
Oh, you're on mute, Justin.
And as we kind of end today, is there a call to action that you have for the listeners?
Yeah, for a long time, I would say I had a career that was progressing, but I wasn't driven by passion and purpose. And I think when I came into this role, and there were a few things, kind of opportunities that brought me to this role, it really expanded my life. And so I think to the listeners, it's to live with purpose and passion and find your your space and your place in this world. I would say maybe it's post-COVID, I'm not sure why, but there just feels like there's a heaviness at the moment to the world. And so it's also just taking it easy, having a bit of fun, laughing, really surrounding yourself with positive people and positive energy. And like I said, just finding meaning in your life. And it could be the smallest things, but I found that was a huge shift. And once I was aligned with kind of my passion and purpose, it just welcomes so many more opportunities that I didn't even think of. So yeah, it's a real shift.
It's such a good one to end on too, because you mentioned it a little bit tangentially earlier, but you're like, the purpose gives me the energy too. Like, yes, there's a lot of emotional labor, but you're just like, there's this well when you're tapped into like what your purpose on earth is, that is almost unlimited. I mean, it's not totally, you need to do all the things that you said, but it is a profound source of energy, especially for Catalyst. Taisha, thank you so much. It's been so lovely getting to hear your story and your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you. It was my honor to share.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about how to accelerate positive change, go to our website at catalystconstellations.com.
And be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out. And if you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send a link their way.
Thanks again.